And what a treat it is to be joined by the new play-by-play voice for your Las Vegas Raiders, Jason Horowitz. And Jason, man, congratulations. I'm sure the past, 10 days, 2 weeks have been a whirlwind for you. But I do appreciate that you got the notice about the uniform. You're in the black shirt today. So, if you could try to describe what it's been like the past couple of weeks, where would you even start?
Well, first of all, I opened the package this morning, and there were 4 Raiders shirts. Now, a couple for the broadcast on Thursday night, one for me, and then one for my 5.5-year-old son, who, when he gets back from camp today, is just going to be ecstatic. He's, wow, it's silver and white. He's all about this. He's as excited about this job as I am, so, which is awesome. It's been crazy. It really has been. It's been fast. It's been a whirlwind of emotions. The day that the release came out last Tuesday, we were on the air at Big Ten Media Day for Sirius XM, and I didn't really have a chance to process it and all of the messages and all of the notes and all of that. And it just kind of hit me like a wave of emotions because, you and I are not that different in age, and we grew up at a time where, even obviously people even before us, but we grew up in a time where calling your team's game, it's a whole generation of people who are growing up and you're that voice, and the responsibility, the awesomeness of that it's just kind of hit me with a wave of emotions the last week.
It's so interesting you bring up kind of just being the voice for essentially like someone's childhood, right? Like I'm a big San Francisco Giants fan, right? Like, and so Mike Krukow and Dwayne Kuiper and John Miller, like those are the guys that I grew up listening to. And obviously I'm so spoiled now where I still get to listen to them. And I was telling my wife all the time where I was like, it's hard to explain if you don't have that relationship with a voice, with the person that's with your team. But it's something really, really unique and really, really special.
Yeah. That's especially in the NFL. You referenced baseball. And for me, when I've talked about this the last week, for me growing up, Ernie Harwell, who was the voice of the Tigers heck, he was traded by I believe the franchise was the Atlanta Crackers to the Detroit Tigers in the 50s, which is like trading a broadcaster and all that stuff. But, same thing. But the difference about the NFL is that with the exception of the preseason, all the games, you get a different announcer every week, except on radio, because there are 32 of these positions where you are the voice of that team, and you're with that team and their emotions, the ride of the season, the journey of a game, the whole aspect of it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And do you mind if I nerd out for a sec? Can I ask you some nerd questions?
You can do whatever you want to.
So one of the things that I am fascinated by, especially with radio play-by-play folks, and on the TV side as well, because me and Beth Mowens have had some fantastic conversations about this, but I am so, I would say, oddly intrigued by how play-by-play folks prepare for a game. Like you look at folks around the league and they have these notebooks and these binders and these, the two deep and all that. So I know we're getting ready for game 1 for Jason. And I imagine that the process will change and mature and grow over the season. But what does like the prep look like for you now getting ready for Thursday night in Canton?
Well, I'll show you in person next week.
Oh, please do. I would love that.
You can have the chart and all that stuff. I will tell you, for a preseason game, there are a lot more people on it than I'm used to. So that is the first part of it. Organization's the biggest key, because obviously the game itself is first and foremost, because nobody can see it when they're listening to you. So you have to describe all of it and all the surroundings and all of that to a T. And so that is first and foremost. But if you're not organized with where stuff is and you're trying to find it and looking for it on your chart, or, I've got some note cards here next to me that I usually keep and I'll tape up in a booth. And these are more for storylines. Did we hit the 5 or 6 biggest storylines going into a game? For this one, this is all about Cliff Branch and how legendary he was, and some of the things that, Fred Biletnikoff said when he joined the roster, and one Hall of Famer was in the middle of his career that would lead to another Hall of Fame career. And, some of those type of things. So I'll tape that stuff up in the booth, and season storylines and things like that, just to remember. But particularly for radio, name a number, right? Everything else you can find, as long as you know where it is on your board, everything else you can find, but name a number, and they just go hand in hand. And throughout the course of years, as you go on, it's just kind of a memory thing that kicks in. And if you say, what I'll do night before a game is, 21 and then my name. I'll recognize the name because you see the number and then the name on the field. The one good thing about this, though, Eddie, is that I'm coming from the college aspect of it, where multiple things happen. One, sometimes you actually can't see the number because you get Oregon type jerseys where they actually just blend in.
Now, real quickly, as a proud Oregon Duck, let's tread carefully on the greatness.
Oh, by the way, hold that thought for a second.
Okay.
Have a college roommate who works at the University of Oregon.
Hey, there we go.
Love the Oregon
There
Ducks.
we go. Shout out the Conference of Champions.
But, well, as long as there's,
I was going to say for the next 18 months, but
but there are teams that you cannot necessarily see numbers, where in the NFL the rules are very different about that. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. And then once we get to the regular season, you know who's playing everywhere, and the roster on game day is obviously smaller. So it's going to be awesome.
And I imagine that having a guy like Lincoln Kennedy sitting next to you up in that booth, a guy who's been here for so long, knows the ins and outs of this organization, of this team, the kind of the history of this team, like that has to help going into a Thursday night for you, right?
Yeah. Lincoln, so we have talked before all of this once or twice. He's been a guest on various shows that we've had throughout the years, more from a college perspective, and he's had his own radio show throughout years as well. But getting to know him over the last week or so and talking to him on the phone a couple of times, sharing some texts back and forth, I can already tell that we're going to get along great. And he's going to get a lot. He's the knowledge, right? He's the one that had the long NFL career on the offensive line, playing in the NFL for 11 seasons, all those Pro Bowls, first team All-Pro. He's the one that has that experience. And so he's the one, all those things in game situations, that's going to be like, okay, this is what I'd be thinking about. This is what they're thinking about. This is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. And then, and the back and forth is going to be great. I love his sense of humor already. I can tell. The fact that he was discovered as a marching band member before he was a football player is great. I can't wait to share stories about the fact that I was moved from trumpet to baritone because I stunk at trumpet. And so we're going to get to go.
I love Lincoln. Lincoln knows that me and him go back a long ways. Do not let him sour you on the University of Oregon, because Lincoln is a proud proud alumni of the University of Washington. Do not let him poison your mind, Jason, in these early weeks while you're trying to be nice to him. He's going to tell you some horrible things about my Ducks, and don't believe him for a second.
Well, that's fair. I will say this. They are two of the – so I have a pantheon of college campuses that I have been to, not always called games from, but been to. Eugene, Seattle are two of the top.
Yeah, it's hard to beat them.
You've got unbelievable campuses there. It really is.
Yeah, it's a blast. And Lincoln and I have a good time with it. It actually, a funny story for Lincoln does a podcast for us, The Morning Grind, shameless plug alert, that he'll be bringing back next week as we kind of gear up for the preseason and all that. And Lincoln sends me the audio files every week when he's done, recording. And he tries to sneak in every once in a while at the very end after he's done. And he's like, all right, that's it. Let me know if you need me to recut anything. And there'll be like a 5-second pause. And then he'll say something pretty hurtful about my Ducks, just to see if I'm going to go through the whole file. And he hasn't snuck one by me yet, Jason. Not yet.
Well, as long as you know what that means, it means you're listening.
It does, 100% means I'm listening.
It means you're doing your job and you're doing it really well as someone who listens. That's great. That's great.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you would have been there. You would have been there during the Mariota year.
I sure was. So my 4 years at Oregon, and Matt Walks, who also works for us, we're old college pals. Our 4 years at Oregon were Chip Kelly's 4 years. So we watched a lot of really good football. We watched Marcus towards the end. So having him here the past couple seasons was such a treat for us, just like on a purely like fan college kid type level. It was really cool.
So since you said you wanted to nerd out,
let's do it.
Is when you first met him, did you ask him about do we share this class together?
So do
you remember meeting me at the bar?
Dude, so it's really funny. So when we had Marcus on the first time, because keep in mind, so Marcus signed during the COVID year. So that first 6 months was just, bizarro world to say the least. But when we finally sat down and we did a sit down, I think it was last training camp, maybe last offseason program at some point during the summer. And we started talking, and he knew that I went to Oregon, and we were kind of going back and forth. But we had this really kind of funny realization towards like the end of our conversation, because we were waiting for the camera guys to get set up. And we were like, we're just now both dudes in our late 20s that are kind of just reliving the glory days. Because I was like, oh, I met my wife at a house party on 16th and Ferry. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, I met my wife on 18th and Alder. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And so we had really similar college experiences in the fact that, we were obviously within the same 12 block radius, but he was the most famous person in the Pacific Northwest. And I was just hanging out with my buddies, drinking beers on Saturday, watching him do his thing. But it was just one of those kind of really cool, bizarre world moments. We're like, yeah, we're just old guys now.
Well, I'll tell you what. Next time you see him, I will one of these days ship it out to you so that next time you see him, you can say, "Hey, you won a Heisman Trophy? I have a Heisman Trophy, and I will let you have my Heisman Trophy."
Whoa!
That you can share with Marcus Mariota.
You have a All right. How do you have a Heisman?
So,
give me a story.
So I'm 13 years old. And I grew up in Michigan, in suburban Detroit, and we have some family that lives in Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is where Central Michigan University is. And we were going up for a family event, and they owned what I thought was a jewelry store, but it was a jewelry store / electronics / literally anything you needed in Mount Pleasant, they had. And sitting on the shelf for $39.99 was a replica Heisman Trophy. So I am the proud owner of a replica Heisman Trophy in my office, which one of these days when we actually get shelving in this office here in the basement, because we had a baby last summer, and so our office upstairs is now an office / nursery, and so we've been relegated to the basement. So one of these days when we actually get some shelving down here, I will put the Heisman behind me.
Oh, you got it.
One problem with my Heisman that's different than Marcus's, other than the fact that his is real and I don't know what I would call this. The ball is in the wrong hand. The Heisman is facing the wrong direction, hence $39.99.
Well, at some point, when we get you out here to the facility, I know you're going to be here next week, you got to talk to Jim Plunkett. So Plunk has the real deal Heisman, and he's like shown it to us before, and it is. Well, I would hope it is so. Pretty big.
He won it.
Yeah, he sure did. But I'm telling you,
I would hope he has the real deal one.
But you never know. Sometimes you hear like, oh, there's that whole bit where Carson Palmer had his Heisman Trophy was with Dan Patrick, and Dan Patrick, there's this whole thing. So Plunk has it. It's very heavy, and I would be curious to see if we put them next to each other, if we could tell the difference.
He's the 1970 Heisman Trophy winner? Is that right?
Oh, man, let me look it up.
Something like that?
Put me on the spot. I bet it's something like that.
Something like that. It's something like that.
Let's see. I'm curious now. You've piqued my interest. Plunk won the Heisman in, you are good, 1970.
So there are some weird quirks that I can pull out.
Okay.
And we've done this. I'm not doing this now because now I feel like I'm done. This terrible. But like there have been times where I could go back from like fill in the blank year, whatever you're in, all the way back to the 80s and not miss a Heisman winner.
That's impressive.
But just I think it's because I own a Heisman.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
like
technically,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, I mean, technically, by the letter of the law, you're in that fraternity. I mean, they might not know it, but you know it.
Yeah. I can't wait to tell him. He's gonna look.
I know.
How did we hire this guy?
Plunk is a fantastic sense of humor, though. He'll get a kick out of it. But when we look ahead to Thursday night, and obviously that'll be the game, and I'm sure it'll be such a special moment for you and to share with Lincoln and the family and all that. But more excitingly for me, you're coming out here. We're getting you to Vegas next week. I mean, how excited are you to see this building, to kind of have a chance to see the team in a practice setting? Obviously, you'll see him playing a game on Thursday, but that's got to be kind of just the next thing on the list for you.
Yeah, I mean, so it'll be. I've been to Vegas recently and around Allegiant Stadium and facility because we were out there for the NFL draft. I've hosted the draft for SiriusXM the last 10 years. So around, the Raiders stuff, we'll call it, but not in the broadcast booth, not in the stadium, and certainly with a different perspective today than I had back in April for when we were all out there for the festivities of the draft. So it's man, it's just been so great to talk to everyone who has, because the other thing I've come to notice with the Raiders, obviously the fan base sticks with this franchise forever, and it's one of the most passionate and all of those things that come with the Raider Nation. But one of the things I've gotten to understand about the organization from just this standpoint, man, the men and women who work for the Raiders really feel like they've been there a long time. like between the people that I interviewed with for the job and some of the people who have worked for Silver and Black Productions and others who are working for Raider Nation Radio. I mean, this is a group of people who have been with the organization 10, 15, 20 years. And so putting some faces to those names and getting to know them and having them get to know me it's going to be great.
Yeah, and we can't wait. Like I said, we can't wait to have you out here. Obviously, we're all looking ahead to Thursday night for a variety of reasons, and hearing your voice and hearing Lincoln back in the booth again for the first time in, 6 months. We're all very, very excited. But on a selfish, personal level, we're very excited to have you here in the building to kind of get to know you. And like you said, to put some faces to the names. And before I let you go, though, man, Thursday night, do you think you're going to take like any type of moment to be like, okay, like this is go time? Or are you just going to be straight into business? Hey, this is another day at the office.
No, well, both. I mean, so it's not my first game, but it's different. It's different. And I'm guessing I'll probably feel the same way when it's week 1, it's Raiders Chargers in Los Angeles. And then again when it's week 2, because it'll be the home opener. And so that'll have a different feeling behind it. But the fact that it's at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and not just because the Raiders have so many players who are enshrined there, and not just because of the fact that Mark Davis is going to present Cliff Branch and all of that, but this is the pantheon of football, and everything that has happened in the history of football, in part, which has made the Raiders as historic of a franchise as they are, is there, right? It lives there. The plays live there. The calls live there. The people live there. The moments live there. And so every year in August, when the football world descends on Canton, Ohio, Josh McDaniels' hometown, it's something special to remember that, because there's always a group of people who are trying to get back there when it's all said and done. And you don't get there unless you do something special everywhere else. And so the fact that my first is there, I'll definitely take some moments. No question.
Yeah, you got it.
Hope it doesn't happen in like a 2nd and 7.
No.
Stop and take a moment.
Lincoln's just happy. Hey, we got to go. We got to go. We got to go.
Lincoln, take over. There's a sweep to the right. Take over.
Oh, man. But, hey, like I said, dude, we're so excited for Thursday night to hear you, to hear Link. Congratulations on this new gig. We are fired up to meet you in person next week. We're going to have a lot of fun over the next couple of years. I promise you that. We are going to talk a lot of Raiders football. We're going to talk a lot of things that aren't Raiders football. We're just going to talk, and I cannot wait to have you in the mix, man. So safe travels to Ohio, safe travels back to Vegas when we see you here next week, and I'm excited to connect, man.
Awesome, Eddie. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.